an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, the complete series, wrap-up, finale, crescendo.
Holy shit.
Something. In this episode, Miles and I are going to talk about the whole series, answer some questions from our adoring fans.
They are adoring, aren't they?
They are. They're great. They're great folks. And I'm going to plug a sponsor who bumped his pledge just today so that he could get a little bit of a plug for his upcoming Dark Tower-themed D&D podcast, which is going to be fun.
I have a feeling I know who this is.
Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I'm Miles.
And this is the very last Dark Tower. Dun, dun.
It hasn't really sunk in yet, to be honest.
This series feels like, I was about to say, it feels like as long as Song of Ice and Fire, and it's 7 books. It is. And the books are very large.
Yeah.
So I guess it makes sense it feels that way. I just approached them without really thinking about that aspect of it because I knew that the story wasn't going to be quite so baroque. And there's a lot to sift through in Song of Ice and Fire. Plus I did it like one chapter at a time the first time, which is insanity. But yeah, this doing it this way, like 3 chapters at a time, I guess did stretch it out probably a little bit longer than Song of Ice and Fire, because even though it was one a day, we did it 5 days a week almost. So
yeah, it's true. I think that I really like what we did in terms of we kind of did it out of necessity, the grouping parts of the book together based on what would be the best read and make for the best episode, because King just decided that chapters, he was too good for regular chapters.
Yeah, that's true. I'm saying 3 chapters like it was this real cut and dried thing. Yeah. It was not like that.
But I don't know, I could see covering Song of Ice and Fire, if you were to go back and cover it again, I could see covering certain parts of it in blocks. I can imagine what you'd do, you know what I mean?
Well, spoiler, I am thinking that I'm going to go back at some point. But I won't get into that now because last time the response I received was so insane that I kind of had to pull back and cool down because I was a little overwhelmed. So, all right, this wrap up, I actually got a lot of questions from people. So
I got a few too, as well, in the Facebook chat.
You did? Okay,
yeah.
Cool. The first thing that I want to mention is Jeff Richardson. Is that who you thought it was?
That's who I thought it was. Jeff Richardson of the Everything is Awesome podcast, among other things.
He writes, are you a fan of Stephen King's Dark Tower series? Do you like fun and or seriously unsettling actual play podcasts about dimension-hopping heroes that do battle with the forces of evil? Sorry, I got into a weird... there's a Frasier... Never mind. If you answered yes, chances are you'll enjoy the Trap Society's upcoming special project set in the world of the Dark Tower. Trap is T-R-A-P-P. It takes place between books 6 and 7 and aims to correct some of King's more egregious indulgences.
I think you might have to go back a little further. Sorry.
What was that?
I said I think you might have to go back a little further.
Yeah, I appreciate the word indulgences, though. That's a good way to phrase that.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, you're right. Going back an extra book might be worthwhile. The characters include a survivor of Jericho Hill, the High Wizard of Brooklyn, a shape-shifting badass from Dungeons & Dragons, and so much more. The show isn't available just yet, but head to the Shattered Worlds RPG podcast feed to hear the first hour of your newest podcast obsession. Long days and pleasant nights And Toodaloo, motherfuckers. So thank you, Jeff, for being a sponsor for this, our last episode. And I will share the link to Shattered Worlds in the show notes if anybody wants to check that out.
Yeah, Jeff's great. In case you weren't already listening to his stuff, I was a guest on Everything is Awesome a few months ago, and it was a really cool experience. Nice. And I may or may not have been in talks at one point to appear on this endeavor of his at some point. So I'm not going to share any details right now because I'm honestly not sure if or when it's happening. But we did talk about it, so go listen to it anyway. And as a bonus, you might hear me.
Nice. Yeah, this sounds like a really good idea. Like, I know that doing RPGs based on existing fiction is a thing, but I always forget it. And then when I'm reminded of it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a real good idea. Like getting into a universe that we all sort of know already. And instead of having to build something from scratch.
Yeah.
And this sounds very interesting. And I'm not somebody who's really into like RPG podcasts, but I might check this out just because I would like to hear somebody correct these mistakes. So I'm on board.
The quality of the people involved is peerless. And Jeff, if you're listening to this, sorry I haven't gotten back to you on some things. The reason that I don't know if I'm actually going to be a part of it is because I've been lame and busy. So,
and he sent a separate email that had some questions in it. He writes, "Hey guys, Jeff, the radical mailman here. I'm currently reading a Sort of Tower fanfic pod, and I'd love your insight. Who are some characters in the series you'd like to know more about? And given that the tower connects to all worlds, including literary ones, who or what would you like to have interact with the world of the Dark Tower?"
That is a huge question. I'm gonna leave that second part for now because that
okay.
My mind jumps to a million different places. Who would I like to know more about from the world? I think I wouldn't mind spending more time with Cuthbert and Elen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like we know a decent amount about them, but like I don't know. I wouldn't mind knowing more about them when they were hanging out with Roland and Jamie DeCurry and Sheemy. That kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think?
No, yeah, I see what you're saying with that. I would agree with that. Honestly, weirdly, the first person that I thought of, which is surprising even me right now, is Roland's dad.
Huh.
I don't know what it is about him that I find kind of compelling. I think it's that, like, Roland's obviously got such baggage around his parents, and we don't really get to see that much of them. We just sort of hear about them secondhand or get them, like, as the very bookends to other stories that they aren't really involved in. So, and I'm curious about like his father's career himself as a gunslinger.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think just any like, and again, I'm sure that there are people, Claire, who are gonna come on and say, well, you can read the comics. There's a bunch of other different sources, and that's fine. I think that that maybe at some point, if that does exist, I will go check it out. As I've said before, the other thing that I would just really love, and which I'm gonna guess has never been expanded on, is the Tet Corporation people. I really enjoyed that bit. I would love to know more about the people that Roland meets in that brief sliver of time at to Hammerskjold Plaza or whatever it's called.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I'd forgotten about that whole thing. and sort of in that. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, you went so quiet. Sort of in that same vein, I would like more about. Is it Aaron? What's the name of the guy that's partnered up with Calvin Tower?
Oh yeah, Aaron Deepno. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know more about like what all goes on with him.
Yeah, him and John Cullum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to know that stuff.
Because like Calvin sucks, and I don't care what happens to Calvin. But Aaron's rad.
Yeah, they hint at the stuff that they did or they had to do, like in their war against North Central Positronics. Mm-hmm. And I remember at one point reading that going like, man, this would be so much more interesting if I was reading about that.
Right, yeah.
than
I
whatever
can see
this
that.
is. As far as other, like, fictional properties getting pulled in, I mean, it has Doctor Doom in it and Harry Potter. And I just don't know how you get better than that. I mean, I guess maybe, like, Eddie could try to teach Roland about pro wrestling sometime?
Oh my god. That... Whoa, okay, sure. Why not? It's no more ridiculous than anything else, to be honest.
I mean, Eddie comes from 87, so, like, 87, that is one of the biggest wrestling boom periods in the States. I'm sure he was a fan.
I'm noticing, because, like, my answer originally, he says, connects to all worlds, including literary ones, and while this technically is literary in basis, I'm sort of finding a loophole here when I say everybody from Westworld. Because I'm just like Wyatt from that series, and I will not get into who Wyatt is, but Wyatt and Roland would have a lot in common, and idealistically would not agree in a lot of ways, but I'd be interested to see how the two of them interacted.
What about a Dark Tower Mad Max crossover?
I have never seen Mad Max.
Any of them?
I saw them, like, new one.
Okay, so you saw the one that matters. Got it. That's what I'm talking about.
I thought you were talking about, like, the old one, but yeah, I can see that with the new stuff. Yeah, that's cool. That would work.
Yeah.
Give Roland a fucking dirt bike.
That's right. The world has moved on in Australia.
Yeah, I like that answer. And then there was one other thing that he sent, which he said, this is more my own observations than questions. But number one, all King needed to do to make the king less cheesy was say he got stuck in the tower. Everyone's tower tells their own story, so he could have gotten lost trying to fix his shitty life over and over and gone insane. Then he could be out there to keep anyone else out because he doesn't think clearly anymore, and it makes him of the line of Eld, so it makes sense how he could have gotten up there. That's an interesting idea.
I mean, look, that's one of any number of things that could have made the character more interesting.
He adds, and make him a little less Santa and a little more cult leader type asshole. Maybe even Merlin or Arthur Eld.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at this point, like, pretty much anything you can think of is better than what we got. Because
I stand by the king being Stephen King.
I do, like, that's still my favorite too, I think. But, like, but anything more than, I have a feeling he's stuck outside the tower. Right,
yeah. Just coming up out of fucking nowhere.
Do you know, I was reading, I think it was actually Harry Potter. There was I've been listening to another Harry Potter podcast, sorry, called Binge Mode. And, they do their own distinct style of Harry Potter coverage, and occasionally they read from the book. And
they were at LeakyCon. I actually saw them a couple times.
Yeah. They talked about that. But they are covering Order of the Phoenix, and at one point, and they quote this, at one point in Order of the Phoenix, Harry, it's like mentioned, Harry didn't know how he knew this, he just knew.
Oh my god.
And I was like, no!
Oh no.
I was so upset.
No. Oh well.
I mean,
as long as you don't lean on it too much, I can let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it makes more sense in the context of that book than, anyway.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, really anything with the Crimson King, I think that would be an improvement. I don't see how you can't get better.
So then he goes on to say, I'd love to hear you guys recite your favorite sections or passages. But unfortunately, I was not prepared to do this because I was out all day, so I didn't have a chance to like check on this stuff. Because he sent it earlier today, since this, the last episode went up just this morning. There's so much beautiful language in there that I think it got skipped because you focus so much on plot and themes. No shade meant at all.
True.
Yeah, there are some really, like, I tend to read aloud the parts that I either find hilarious and absurd or super fucking upsetting and like disturbing or scary. And I stand by reading aloud the parts about the third thing Jeff mentions, which is how cool was that fucking tunnel monster? Which, yes, it was. And the whole way that King handles that, I would read that whole thing out loud on this podcast.
And yeah, I read the last chapter out loud, so you got a little bit, Jeff. I know you're a junkie for people reading stuff on the air, but yeah, no, I'm not prepared for that either, honestly. However, I do think it ties in. Is that all from him? Mm-hmm. Because I was going to say, if you want to, I don't know if anybody has asked you this, but I have been asked for us to talk about which was our favorite book.
Okay.
And maybe what we should do, what I think might be interesting to do, is do you have, like, a ranking? Like, how would you rank the 8 Dark Tower books? And from your favorite to your least favorite?
Number 2 is number 1.
Okay.
Number 3 is number 2.
Okay.
Number 1 is number 3.
This is so confusing.
Number 4 is number 4.
Okay.
And number 5, 6, and 7 are number 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, interesting. So you got Drawing of the Three at the top, then Wastelands, Gunslinger, Wizard and Glass, Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, Dark Tower, and then where would you put The Wind Through the Keyhole in there?
If I'm going to count it as one of these, I would put it probably at like 4.
Okay, so
right under the top 3, which are the good ones.
Right, which are the first 3.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
because it just kind of like descends into madness 4 and on and gets worse and worse.
I think yeah, I think it's a toss up for me between the second and third book as to which one is the best. But in terms of like which one I enjoy reading the most, I think it has to be Drawing of the Three. I think that's probably the best book, and then I would also put The Wastelands right after that. I would move Wizard and Glass up into that 3 spot just because of the bit at the beginning with Eddie getting rid of Blaine. It's just one of my favorite moments in the whole series, and I have to give credit where credit is due for that. And then probably the Gunslinger, with the Keyhole. I'd put Song of Susanna above Wolves of the Kala, and then Dark Tower at the bottom.
Song of Susanna over Wolves of the Kala? Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I might actually put Wolves of the Kala down below Dark Tower, to be honest.
Wait, okay, so that order is what again, then?
So then it would be... So then my order from best to worst would be number 2, number 3, number 4, number 1, number 8, with Wind Through the Keyhole. And then I think I'm going 6, 7, 5.
So 5 is your least favorite?
I think so.
God, I'm shocked. I thought we were very much on the same page that the last book's the worst book.
I mean, but that ending is so good, though.
Yeah, that does not make up for making me read the rest of it. Just doesn't.
I look, again, a toss-up. I think you should make an argument for that. I mean, okay, I hear you. But 5 is just so boring and pointless.
Yeah, I mean, it is ultimately, but the actual reading of it, I actually, was somewhat into. It was just that once I realized how none of it wound up actually mattering, in the end, I felt swindled.
Do you think The Drawing of the Three is the best book because it spends more time... Because it's spends more time introducing us to Eddie and Susanna, like, in New York.
I think so. I think it's a combo of them in New York and getting to know them for the first time and not knowing anything about them. And Roland having to, like, navigate a world that he's totally unfamiliar with and not necessarily very confident about.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big fan of any part of the story that puts Roland off kilter a little. He's just so competent all the time that having him be really not on top of things, I don't know. I like seeing that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, competence porn really isn't my thing. You know what I mean? Like, I can get into it if it's like, oh god, you know, like that fucking scene at the end of Rogue One with Vader, you know, it's like, oh shit, he's just a murderer and he's gonna kill all of you. Like, it's great. Right. But, like, I would much rather have a character, I'd much rather read about a character not knowing what to do.
Right.
You know, or being, like you said, thrown off a little bit. I love The Wastelands just because I think the best part of that book is by far the stuff with Jake going crazy. Like, that stuff really makes that book come close for me. But I think there's a little too much. I just think that the stuff with Eddie and Susanna is a little bit superior to the stuff in Lud, when Jake gets kidnapped and Roland has to go through the maze and everything. And, like, it's all very good. I would put Slaughter the notch below.
Gotcha. Yeah, all right, I see that. I don't agree, but I get it.
Wait, I thought you said you did.
Well, I don't agree with your reasoning for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah. All right, that works. All right, do you want to come at me with one of the other questions that you got? Because that one, what order would you put the books in was one of yours, right?
Yeah, that was from, oh, wait, who sent that in?
Dun, dun, dun.
Now I don't even know. Maybe I made it up. I thought somebody had asked that. But, let's see. I'll tell you, I don't know if I want to go negative or not. So David Keogh asks, what is the single most baffling choice King made in the series? And I thought about this prior to recording, and I think there's a difference between most baffling choice and, like, the worst choice. Because the worst choice is the Susanna pregnancy storyline.
Yes.
That was just, like, objectively the worst idea you could have implemented in the series. But I understand why it happened, because that's just how dude writers think about their female characters a lot of the time. Like, it's not baffling to me. I get what led to it. I just think it's awful. In terms of most baffling choice, I think it would have to be, and again, we've talked about this so much, but just, you know, getting rid of characters we know and replacing them with characters we don't just continues. Yeah. I just have no idea why it happened.
I just really, for me, number one most baffling choice is the Red King existing at all. The Red King does not actually show up at all in person until the very, very last part of the book, and then he's incredibly disappointing. Nothing about this story would really change if you just took him out, completely deleted him.
No, I mean, you could...
It wouldn't affect any... And the whole build-up to him was not worthwhile, so just, you know?
Yeah, like, if you took out him and Patrick, then you just, like, find some other reason for Susanna to leave, if she's got to leave. Mm-hmm. Like, find some way, find some, you know, like, either she just, like, wanders off, into Roland's world, or, like, they just find a random door, because nothing has to make sense in the story. Then Roland continues on and goes to the tower, and everything's the same.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that the Crimson King and Patrick Danville are probably the two single most superfluous story elements in the entire series, and they like cancel each other out and justify each other's existences in a weird way that's not supported by the rest of the plot. So I don't. It's just fluff, man. It doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, you want to go?
Okay. Yeah. So the first one is from Candace that she sent me on Twitter, and it's a hard thing with Candace, because it's Candace. I assume I should find this offensive in some way. But to be honest, I don't even remember what she's talking about.
Okay.
She tweeted, "Sometimes I think about Detta calling Eddie gray meat. Do you?"
No.
I don't remember that at all.
I remember it. Like I think it's when they have her like tied up. It's in Drawing of the Three.
What does gray meat mean? What is that?
I don't know. I mean, it's a Detta-ish insult. Like, I'm sure it. All right, I'm not sure it makes sense if you go back and read it, but I'm sure like it fits, right?
I don't know.
Is it it's probably some permutation of like white person? I don't know. I never think about it. No, to answer your question, I don't ever think about it.
All right then. So let's see. What's the next one? Oh yes. A dog has no name at Ryan is sweet on Twitter writes, "Would you ever recommend this series to someone?" Yes, I would. I would caution them, but yeah, I think I would. I think it's just, it's worth reading. It's just, I think that the way that we covered it is really what did us in a lot of ways. This is not a good series to sit and analyze every little thing. You know, it just makes you crazy.
Yeah.
So the best way to do it, if you're gonna, is to just fly through it and hopefully not really notice the problems with it, you know?
Which again was absolutely my experience in Song of Susanna, but not the other two end books, you know? Mm-hmm. Would I recommend it? I mean, it would depend on the person, but sure. Look, the first 4 books are really good.
Yeah.
Like, even Wizard and Glass with its extended, like, teen romance love story thing, like, it's really good. Mm-hmm. And even, like, they're significant chunks of the final books that are quality too, but at what I would probably say to somebody if I thought they would like the series is, you know, if you're going to check out the series, be advised that the first 4 are excellent, and you know, as far as the last 3 goes, your mileage may vary, particularly depending on if you're a Stephen King fan. If I was recommending this to a Stephen King fan who had never read the Dark Tower series, absolutely,
right,
I'd be like, you're going to fucking love this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good qualifier. Because being familiar with him does sort of, well, it helps and hurts.
Yeah.
But, because then you, like, kind of know his tricks and his flaws.
It helps understand the plot and some of the choices that are made. Mm-hmm. I think it probably hurts in the realm of, like, being surprised or, like, being, you know, being taken to someplace you weren't expecting to be taken.
And there's also the element of it tying in with so many other books of his. So if you've read a bunch of Stephen King, there's so many little Easter eggs that might make it more enjoyable for you. It could be also just distracting, but I would think that it would probably be fun. We all tend to like feeling like we're on the inside, right?
Yeah. By the way, on that note, I did want to mention, after our last episode, Claire did write in the Facebook chat some extensive explanations of some of the things we wanted to know at the end of Wind Through the Keyhole. I'm not sure if you want me to read it or not, but she did explain it to me. It doesn't really change my opinion of the book or the plot device, but it does seem as though Gabrielle, Roland's mom, did know through her connection to Walter that if she returned to the capital to with the information that she had about the upcoming fall of Gilead, it was prophesied or whatever that Roland would kill her, so she would be dooming him to a life of grief.
Okay.
For the record, since we were on the subject of people who have really enjoyed and studied the King universe.
Right. Okay, so that's kind of what I thought. Right? That was the... Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that works.
Which I still think is bullshit. Like, I still think it's like the whole him forgiving her for, like, setting him down this path is kind of a stretch for me still. Mm-hmm. But it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, and I really liked Wind Through the Keyhole. It's just, you know, some of the things that we mentioned as being, like, strange to put into a fictional story for the actual Wind Through the Keyhole section. Again, it's the sort of thing that I think if you're reading it real quick the way that you would normally read a book, it doesn't bother you.
Right.
But the way that you and I did it, where we break it down and go, wait a second, yeah, that's bad. That's going to mess with your... enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
I think.
Although again, I did read that one like a normal book, and I still definitely had some issues, you know, as I was going through it. But I was also, when I was reading Wind Through the Keyhole, I was like not prepared to give King the benefit of the doubt on very many things.
That is the other. Yeah, I think the attitude that you go into it with is going to just give shades to whatever you're reading anyway.
I have a question that kind of ties into that as well. Which we've talked about a little before, but Tony wants to know, would you have read the series together for the podcast if I had read books 5 through 7? Like, would I have, if I had come into this totally spoiled, would I have stopped you, essentially, I guess? Or, like, would I still have been willing to do it? I think, yeah. It's, had I known what was coming, I might have been a little bit less enthusiastic in some ways. But again, I really do love the ending. So, you know, and it's still, like, it's still worth reading.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, like, that's the thing. It's like, am I bummed that it ended the way that it did? Yeah, definitely. But if I'm trying to only cover stuff that I love, it's going to be like a real short list. There's a plenty out there that is worth reading and worth seeing that isn't necessarily going to be something that I'm going to want to return to over and over again, but I'm glad that I experienced it. And this definitely falls into that category for me, that, like, you know, I'm a completist, which is part of what worries me about starting Discworld. But I don't like to stop. The only thing that I did that with, like, and I don't mean quitting something that really just got terrible and seemed like it didn't know where it was going, like Scandal or Walking Dead. But the only time that I was really like, I think that's enough and I'm good here, even though I know there's more, was when we covered Sandman.
Yeah.
You know, and I was aware but that felt like a complete story to me. And you and Anton, who had read the others, kind of felt that there was no need to continue with that. And I really trusted your opinion on that.
Yeah.
Because it felt that way when we finished that series, that, yeah, this is it. This is what it was intended to be originally. So that being the one exception, but mostly I need to know exactly where it goes. I can't, you know, because one of the questions that we got actually from Joshua Sibley on the Facebook page was, do you regret not ending at book 5?
No.
He says, I did end at book 5. I accept the end as it's fitting. The final confrontation, however, the boss... Oh, no, he says I did regret it. Not that he did stop at book 5. My bad. I accept the end as it's fitting. The final confrontation, however, the boss battle was garbage. King got lazy and scared of dying, so he laid out a big turd instead of letting his muse finish the story right.
I can't argue with it.
I do not argue your point at all, but I definitely don't regret ending at book 5.
No, not at all.
Wolves of the Calla ending there would make me crazy. That was like, there's no way that I could have stopped at that book and believed that what came after would be even more infuriating. I wouldn't have believed it. Now I know better. But the way that Wolves of the Kala ends is such an anticlimactic letdown. I would never have trusted that was how, that, you'll be glad you stopped here. I would never believe it.
Yeah. I stopped, before we started doing this, I had stopped at the end of book 4 and was fairly satisfied. Like, I had never felt... part of it is that I'd been told that the last 3 books are less good. But I had never felt an incredibly strong urge. Like, Wolves of the Kala was on my bookshelf for years before I ever picked it up. And, so, I don't know. At that point, for some reason, there seemed to be a real, like... clean dividing line for me where I was fine for a long time with not moving forward. But I'm really glad I did, to be honest. Like, it doesn't retroactively ruin the first 4 books for me or anything. I think that the fact that I was able to get so invested in these characters in the first 4 is the reason that I get so infuriated when I read the last 3, because I feel like the characters are being betrayed or not used properly or just like, not given the story ending they deserve.
Right.
But that's a compliment to the first 4 books. And I'm happy to know what happened. I'm happy to know how the series ended, even if I wish it had ended differently. It gives you a lot to talk about and think about, and, it's kind of nice to be part of a fandom, even if you're kind of a, less invested part of the fandom, because apparently being invested is the work of an insane person.
And that sort of ties in with the question that Adam Schoenfarber asked, which was it worth it? Yeah, definitely.
Totally.
Yeah, completely. Like, this is just a series that's been on my mind a lot, and a lot of people have asked for it. And I just wanted to know, So it definitely was for me.
It took us... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I can really understand if other people don't agree with that. But...
Right. I mean...
I'm just...
The benefit... Like, we've talked about the drawbacks of covering the books the way we do, but the benefit is that we get to cover the books the way we do, and it's, like, super fun.
Right.
So, it took us 2.5 years to cover the story. And I've had a blast, even when I was hating on everything. So, yeah, totally.
And it's just sort of fascinating, like, in a clinical way, when you detach yourself from your investment in the characters, to look at the way an author can just go so off the rails and still be respected and still have the contracts that he has. Like, it's really kind of reassuring, although I'm not a white guy, so maybe I shouldn't take it as that. But I can't help but be amazed at the slack that he gets, and I do feel like it's sort of proof that maybe people don't like the ending, and it's, most of us seem to feel that it's not what it could have been, but still people refer to it as being this, like, opus and really amazing series, because the first 3 were so good, first 3 or 4, that it manages to, like, overshadow. You can just not think about the rest of it. And that really says a lot about how good they were.
Yeah.
People are still willing to be like, no, but I really want you to read this and I want to know what you think.
And I also think that one of the more notable things about the series is how ambitious it is. Like, I think that the ending, the last 3 books of this series completely fail. But let's not take away from the fact that, like, what he was trying to do was pretty hard. I don't think he should have tried. But the fact that he did is like, oh, okay, damn. Like, I'm not gonna like totally put someone down for, not, having to turn back before they got to the top of Everest or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's an exaggeration, but yeah, I mean, he took a real big swing. I don't think he made it, but it really is even if it's not like a great series, it really is a fascinating series, especially when you consider all the ways he's pulling himself into it and what his mindset might have been and what does he think about it now. And, you know, there's all these, you know, links to his other books. And while I find that infuriating, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, as somebody who has been in the middle of writing or starting to whatever fucking stupid measurement I use, trying to write something of my own, it is sort of, again, reassuring to see somebody who is so well regarded just fuck it up. But he still did it, and it's out there. And that is like weirdly inspiring. Sometimes you just have to put it fucking down on paper and just be like, yeah, read it. Is it perfect? No. But I did it.
Right.
And it's there.
Yeah.
And as somebody who can be way too much of a perfectionist to the point that it blocks me from just completing shit that's very basic that nobody cares about, him putting out the final fucking book of this enormous series that people had been waiting on forever and just letting it go, putting it out there and just sort of letting it go. Like, I hope to be there someday. Honestly, there's a part of me that's really jealous of that he can do that and be like, yeah, well, you know, win some, lose some.
Right. Absolutely. And like, hell, dude, he put out the book. Like, he wrote it. Yep. It's done. Mm-hmm. You know, he's done more than I've ever done. He's done more than certain popular fantasy authors have done recently, who I won't name. You know, it's like, you gotta credit the guy for knocking it out when he decided it had to be finished. I just, you know, I think maybe he should have taken some more time and done some more editing, but maybe he needed to get it all out in a rush so that it would actually be done. And, you know, mad respect to the guy. But, you know, yeah, it's a really just fascinating series of books. I'm so glad that I finished it.
Brenton Harsh writes, I loved book 7. I really did, which is a shame that most people didn't. My question, what is your favorite book? And do you think Wind Through the Keyhole was a good addition to the series? Book 7 is awesome. I will fight people if necessary.
Oh, I think I was thinking of his question earlier.
Brenton, I will fight you. And I'm not trying to be smart. I really don't know what there is to like. And I'm asking. And I think I've asked Brenton this before, and he's never really gotten back to me with like a solid answer. And I'm sorry, now it's too late. This is the last episode.
I think he just likes it, you know? I think his answer when I've asked him about it has always been just like, there are things that I like, you know?
Which is fine, but I just want to know what that is. Like, do the things that bother us, did they never occur to him, and now that they've been brought up, he just doesn't care? Was he not invested in certain characters that we cared about? Like, did the Red King... Was that not something that he was like interested in and looking forward to? So when the Red King turned out to be lame and boring, he didn't care, you know, like, because there's things like that people read things in different ways. And if your expectations are not the same as me or Miles, then maybe this stuff wouldn't bother you. And I'm not trying to like have an argument. I really want to know specifically why things that are just straight up continuity errors and plot holes and stuff wouldn't bother you. Like, I don't understand how you can be invested in a series and like it and not care about that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The 7th book is bad. It's real bad, Brenton. I know you like it, but as you know, there are some things that we don't agree on, and it's fine. Yeah, I don't know. My favorite books are all in the first 4, and I think that, you know, that the last 3 are just objectively weaker, and I don't like, even if you like the last 3, you have to agree that they're worse than the first 4, right?
He loves it, so it doesn't sound like he thinks that. And this is why, like, Brenton, I really wish that when I had asked you, because I feel like I asked you this in the live read. And I asked you this at another point, too, that I was like, really, why? Because to me, nothing that was promised is paid off. So, you know, if you want to post in the patrons group about what you like about it, I'll be interested to read it, because I'm not trying to be like, yeah, name one thing. And being like a douchebag waiting for a fight. I really want to hear your perspective, because it sounds like you went into this with a very different attitude than we did, than most people did, really, because Brenton's like one of 2 people I've seen that liked the 7th book. So I'm just curious what his mindset was.
I mean, that tunnel monster is pretty cool.
The tunnel monster is rad as fuck.
Yeah. I have 2 more things that I have up on mine. That are both kind of in-universe questions.
Okay.
As opposed to, like, what did we think about X?
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, and one that I really enjoy, is from Claire. And she asks, do you think that Jake, Eddie, Susanna, and Oi are doomed to the same fate as Roland, or does he draw a new Katet every time?
Interesting. Ooh. You know, this actually, like, occurred to me in a very, like, back of my mind way, but I didn't really stop and ask myself the question, like, whether or not they do this over and over again. I guess I sort of just went, they must, that sucks, and, like, you know, moved on to the next thought. But now that you've, like, straight up asked it and I'm thinking about it, it doesn't make sense for them to do it over and over again.
I mean,
it seems like there's a real parallel between everybody in his Katet, in his final quest, and the people that he grew up with. So I'm guessing that it changes every time, and they are just all archetypes of certain sort of personalities. I mean, he says at one point that, like, Eddie in the middle of a fight straight up looks like what's his name? Cuthbert.
Yeah. I've thought about this probably more than I should have. Devoted time in my life and in my brain to this question. Okay. I think Jake is always there. At the very least, I think Jake is always there because Jake is part of the story before he does the tarot reading with Walter and draws his cards. And also because Jake, while Jake is drawn into Midworld, he's not drawn in the same way. Because when he draws his card, he gets... what is Eddie? Like it's not the junkie, but you know, it's something like that. It's the junkie or whatever it is, or the prisoner. That's what it is.
The prisoner.
It's the prisoner, right. The Lady of Shadows, and Death, but not for you. And
right.
The Death Door is the one that leads him into the head of Jack Mort, which relates to Jake. But you know, so maybe he pulls that one every time. I can see that being a thing, but I tend to think that the other two are different every time, and I guess I think that because I kind of like it. You know, it's kind of cool. It makes sense. You know, there are more cards in the deck. It would, you know, if that is such a dramatic thing, it would make sense to me to do that. But I also see plot holes in that because, like, again, that only works for me when you don't consider what the 7th book has to say about Walter. Because, like, for that to be true, then Walter has to be actually powerful and has to be actually linked into the larger goings-on in the universe. Like, if Walter's the guy who's making him draw these cards, and these cards determine who his companions are going to be on this particular version of the loop journey, then Walter has to be way more of a big deal than he turns out ultimately to be. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I don't know. There are contradictions. Like I said, I've thought about it too much, but that's kind of where I'm coming down on it right now. And Oi, I don't know. I kind of feel like Oi is always there too. Like Jake and Oi are the constants. And Eddie and Susanna are the ones that are drawn. I don't really know why I feel that way, but that's how that's my thought.
So, I guess that would make sense because it's like Cuthbert and Elaine, and it's just them three initially, right? When he's a kid, a young man. So, I guess it would make sense if you wanted to go with Jake and Oy being constants because of the... If you're trying to do what I'm thinking, which is mirror his tech growing up, because also Elaine has the touch, and I had been going to say that Jake does too.
Yeah.
That's not really Susanna's thing. So that kind of undermines that theory.
Sure.
And I'm not necessarily like married to this idea, but it gets brought up enough how similar like he feels about certain people here and there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say it's always different.
Okay.
But I really like this question. Makes you go into wild theorizing, which I'm always a fan of.
Yeah, and I like it because it gets into some of the things that aren't explained. And, like, in this series, frankly, like, I really love the stuff that goes unexplained because the stuff that gets explained is shitty.
Yeah, true.
Krista asked in the Facebook chat, what do you think the quartet does in New York City? By which she means, at the end of the book, when they're all reunited in whatever alternate world that is, like, what happens to them?
Yeah, I had been, like, kind of thinking about that myself because, again, there's not really a satisfying answer to that. Like, them all being reunited in New York City, it's such a different world, it feels like. It has to be a totally different version of everything. Does the, like, tech corporation and whatnot live there? Is that the word I want? Exist there?
Exist
the
there,
same
sure,
way?
yeah.
Like, can they get involved with that at all? Does it matter? Are they, like, where in time are they, too? Are they in Jake's time? Are they in Eddie's time?
Well,
do we know?
It must be something. I mean, I don't know where in time they are. It's really bizarre, and the more you think about them being together in New York City at the end of the book, the less sense it makes. Because basically you're postulating a world in which either Jake, like, it's an alternate reality in which it's the 70s and Jake has an older brother that he didn't have before, or it's the 80s and Eddie's brother is actually Jake and not Henry, or it's the 60s and they just both exist there. You know, their names are different. Their last name is Torrin, I think, right? And I don't know. It's impossible to know, obviously, but it really is like there's no clues as to when they are or what kind of world this is.
Yeah.
You know, but I am going to say that I think that in every possible world, Jake ends up working with a bunch of mutants down in some kind of mine. You know, like,
I love this.
Yeah, he grows up. You know, he becomes a kind of a blue collar worker. He's a little embittered. You know, the older he gets, you know, he can't hold the girlfriend. He's got a couple of ex-wives. He drinks too much. You know, he slowly starts to vote Republican, and you know, eventually he has to go back to his roots, which is of course working with the Slum Mutants in the uranium mines.
So are you saying that he becomes like a pit boss of the mines? Because I feel like what you're describing, he'd have to be the one that owns the place, right? Like, he's clearly going to be the capitalist, like, slumlord.
Sure, yeah. I think I think maybe it was like a family holding, you know,
okay,
originally. And he gets back and like his dad is like, you won't get any privileges here. You have to work your way up, and he does, and he becomes the the overseer of the mines, and probably turns it around financially, and like becomes a household name, his brand, mutant mining, and
Muty mines,
yeah, and on his off days, he and several of his favorite mutants form a barbershop quartet.
Well, I hope that you all enjoyed that very serious response to your question.
I mean, come on. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah. But I do agree with you that, like, really, the way that works, it doesn't make it, like, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I actually do appreciate there being a happy ending for everybody in this.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, when you like look at it for too long, it doesn't really work out. But I think that's kind of, like you said, tying in with the whole, don't explain it. I prefer that, because whatever you tell me is going to be really disappointing. So this is fine.
It's kind of like the Harry Potter epilogue,
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, I'm glad this is happening. You're reading it, you're like, this is good. I'm glad I get to read this. Like, this is the right way to end things. But, like, there's things that bug you about it.
Yeah, definitely.
You're just reading it, you're going like, Albus Severus? Really? All right.
And if you felt that way, don't read Cursed Child. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I have no intention of reading that book, from everything I've heard about it.
Cursed Child. I finally got, actually, the audio from the panel, which the quality of the audio turned out to be so much better than I expected. So that's going to be going up soon. But, like, guys, what a disaster. But, yeah, anyway. So, all right. Last serious question. Because the one that Krista asked was, point on the doll where King hurt you. And it would have to be all over my mind, my heart.
My balls.
My balls. Tony asks, how would you have liked to have seen the quartet end up? Would you have liked to have read all of them at the tower together? I wouldn't. And I don't really have a good answer for why not. I just don't think that they all were meant to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It just feels so distinctly Roland's thing to get to the tower.
I agree. I'm going to go the other way, though, because I honestly would have liked to see it. Like, I'm not sure how well it would have fit, but I would have liked it.
Okay.
It's hard because I'm thinking about, things we've talked about before in our coverage in terms of, like, how King kind of botches the stakes of this story. Mm-hmm. Because, you didn't even believe Eddie was dead for a long time.
Yeah.
So, like...
that part.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You right there, mister?
Yeah, I'm good. If he had spaced out the deaths a little bit more, I would have been more okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly feel like if he's not going to do that, by the time he got to the 7th book, I was pretty ready for, like, them all to make it. I didn't think it was going to happen, but I don't know. I'm into the idea of the companionship fulfilling the quest. Okay. And, like, again, I want to stress, it doesn't make sense. Thematically, it doesn't make sense. Like, I really like the bit about Roland's character, and it's really poignant, the whole thing about, like, everybody he knows dies to get him here. Like, mm-hmm. I really like that. But as just a fan of the characters involved, I would love to see what would have happened if they had all made it to the Dark Tower.
Okay. I can respect that. I think that's part of, you're talking about how, like, you were ready for them all to get there or to make it because of how he sort of botched it. And I think that's part of why I got so irritated, was like, why are you going to let them all reach the last book and then just indiscriminately kill them off, which is what it really feels like happens. Although Susanna doesn't get killed, but frankly, the way that she's sent off feels like a complete cop-out to me.
Well, yeah, and she gets, her character was assassinated long before.
Right. Yeah. There's also that.
What was the line from Hot Fuzz when Angel is finding out the whole story behind everything that's been going on, like Timothy Dalton's running it down for him, and he explains that he killed the one guy just because he was a bad actor.
Yes.
And Angel's like, you murdered him for that? Well, he murdered Bill Shakespeare.
Yeah, I think that's kind of that. Like, I didn't really realize that until you just said it like that. But all of them, like having it all happen at the end, that's kind of what frustrates me. I was willing to, right from the beginning, they're not all going to make it. I figure that, and they shouldn't all make it. There's no sacrifice if they don't. Right. If they do, but. He couldn't even let their sacrifices seem to mean anything because of the way it happened. So I think regretfully, when Tony asks, how would I have liked to seen the quartet end up? I would have liked to see them get whittled away starting at book 5, I guess. Have the first one die at the Kala fight.
Or, yeah. I would have had at least one die at the Kala fight. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah.
Because you need to do something with that fucking fight. There needs to be something that feels like an enormous shift just happened. And to be perfectly honest, the person that should have died was Eddie.
Yeah.
And then
probably.
you have Susanna become this, fucking angel of death to avenge him because these fuckers who did this are the ones that are also breaking the beam, so she can zero in on that. And Jake is dealing with the death of his friend.
And if you want to keep her pregnant, you could keep her pregnant with Eddie's kid and have her be a pregnant angel of death, which would be pretty fucking cool, I think.
It would be. It would be pretty rad. She would be like a Charity Carter. Well, I'm doing a Dresden Files reference. You really need to read those, Miles. I'm serious. You would like them. If you just got past the first 3, you would be into it, serious.
All right.
I promise.
I'll give it a shot.
Have I misled you? Has this happened at all yet?
I'm seriously thinking about this. I don't think so. No.
I can be trusted.
Certainly not as much as I've misled you leading you into the series.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I understand people talking about how they wish that you had read them all because it would have changed the flavor of things, but I'm glad that you hadn't because you're not good at hiding your disdain for stuff, and I would have picked up on that, and it would have influenced how I saw everything.
I agree.
So going into it with both of us not quite spoiled actually seemed to me to work out for the best.
Well, because it really let me continue to bask in my absolute love of those first 4 books. And yeah, I agree. I'm not good at that. When I don't like something, I tend to, people know.
I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, no, I guess I could see Eddie dying in that battle. And then, after that, if you don't have the series should have been shorter, right? So
well, yeah,
if you
I definitely think that
if you go from that battle, because if you don't do the pregnancy thing, then you don't have to do the Dixie Pig, you don't have to do Mordred, you don't have to do any of that. So you go from that battle to basically, if you can find a way to get to Algol Siento from there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Have Susanna die at Algol Siento.
Yeah, or even you also have Callahan still at that point if they don't go into the Dixie Pig. So there's him as well. But yeah, Susanna could die at Algol Siento. I think you keep Jake's death the same. have him die saving King. I think that's fine. And then, have Oi go the rest of the way with Roland. That would be fine. Again, like, just a little bit more space.
I would prefer to have Jake be the one at the tower fighting the Red King, even though that is stupid.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about what's-his-face.
That's a good point. And you know what? Actually, if you have Oi die saving King, that's kind of cool.
Oh, that's fucked up.
I know, but that's
good, though.
Yeah.
No, I like that better. You're right.
And then Jake makes it all the way to the end, and maybe gets killed by a cooler version of the Crimson King.
Hopefully.
And again, the presence of Mordred simply doesn't matter. He could be completely taken out of the series and nothing changes.
Because it just didn't. Did it?
No, it really didn't.
So yeah, I prefer that. I like the I like that order of things because Jake just seems like he should get to the end, as close to the end as possible.
I agree. And
then he defeats the Crimson King, but he dies.
Yeah, I like that. And that's like, and that really brings it full circle because, he was Roland's first sacrifice in the books as we've read them. So for him to be the final sacrifice as well would be very poetic.
All right, well, I think we fixed the book, so...
I think we did. I think we're done here. Get on that, King. I do have one question for you that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Do you think you'll ever watch the movie?
Oh, yeah. I definitely want to watch the movie.
Okay.
I'm very... actually, where is it to be found? Is that on Netflix? Is that on HBO? Do you know?
No idea, actually. Let me see. Let me see if I can look it up.
Dark Tower streaming.
Okay, yeah, you do it.
I'm Googling it. It's on Amazon. I can't tell if it's Prime. Doop. Where to stream and watch? TheDecider.com. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, yeah, I did, actually.
Yeah, I would have to rent it on Amazon, which is annoying.
Yeah.
It looks like I'd have to rent it everywhere. Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google Play.
Give it time. It'll probably get on Netflix eventually.
Probably.
I always get mad when, a movie... Black Panther's coming to Netflix recently. Or it's coming to Netflix soon, and I'm like, God damn it.
It's there now.
Is it there now?
Ryan Reisman posted today that it's there, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I had already bought it, and I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, that's the kind of, I used to always be like, why would you buy it when... But then there are some movies that I just really want the extra features and stuff. I'm a total goober, and I want to hear the director's commentary, and I want to see the outtakes, and I want to see, specials on how they made certain costumes and did effects and whatever. So... Yeah, I'm with you on that. I love the reviews on this, by the way, on Amazon, the Dark Tower movie. 3.5 stars, and the top one on most recent is just 1 star, and all it says is dreadful.
Ouch.
That's funny. Speaking of reviews, we got a new one on August 15th from Miana. 5 stars from Australia. Lucky find, she says. I think it's Miana is a girl's name. If not, my apologies. But they say, I found this podcast when looking up Unspooled on my podcast app, and I'm so glad I did, which I have had a few people find me because of that. Unspooled is I don't know, some famous guy's podcast that he started, and it's just close enough.
That's great.
It's really nice and comforting to re-journey to the Dark Tower and help make sense of how I feel about these books, because 1 year after finishing the series, I was probably reading along at the same pace as the podcast for a while there. I'm still not sure how I feel. Thanks so much, guys. Love it.
Nice.
So that's really nice. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And J.M. Bro from the United States puts 5 stars, one of my favorite podcasts. Natasha and Miles are both brilliantly engaging and personable.
Aww.
They have keen literary insight, as well as providing different points of view from a popular cultural perspective. I find their voices easy to listen to, which is a hard characteristic to quantify and a hard one to find. Making my way through Midworld to the Tower all over, and I rather enjoy this quartet of commentator slingers. I think I might have read this comment before, because I remember commentator slinger tripping me up last time.
You didn't read it to me.
Long days and pleasant nights, sigh.
Nice. Maybe you did. I don't know. That's great, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, appreciate it, everybody. And, if you are coming to us now and you haven't left a review, even though we won't get to read you live, please do leave one because it's super helpful to the show. We've got 43 reviews on this show so far, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
For one of my non-main shows, that's actually in the higher echelons. So really appreciate it, guys, and it's always encouraging to know that people are like actually listening, because sometimes it just feels you're screaming into the void. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. You kidding me?
So, yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about here?
I don't know. I think we about covered it. I mean, it's the Dark Tower series, 2.5-year podcast that we did. Jesus covering Christ. It from end to end. It was...
I can't believe I'm old enough that work that I'm doing on a podcast is in the multi-year, category at all.
You knew what you were getting into when you started the Harry Potter one, so...
It's just... I'm old. I'm getting old. It's happening.
You are not.
It's inexorable.
We're, almost the same age. You can't start talking about how you're getting old.
It's happening. I have so many gray hairs, Miles.
Oh, my God.
This fucking book series added 40 of them, I think.
That's funny, because for me, the gray is showing up more in the meat department than the hair department. You
please leave. Please hang up. I never want to talk to you again. Black Mirror is canceled. You are canceled. Candace, I blame you, and you are also canceled. Everybody involved is cut out of my life forever. Oh, God.
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. No, it was fun. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I had a blast doing it, like I said. I'm so happy that, again, like I said, that I got to read these books, and I think pretty much everybody knows where we stand on this series at this point.
Yeah. I think we've made ourselves clear. Well, I just want to remind everybody that there are a lot of other shows happening.
Yeah.
I will be starting next week. Actually, next week I'm taking off. The week after, I will be starting on Doctor Who. Nice. A couple weeks after that, I'm going to be starting Discworld. And the week after next, I will be beginning for $5 and up patrons Black Mirror's season 3 and 4 with Miles. So if you are somebody who has been debating whether or not you want to become a patron, and that series is something that you're into, I would recommend signing up for this. Patreon.com/unspoiled.
So did you want to start that right away then? Did you decide that? Because we had talked about maybe not.
No, we talked about it last time, and we said we were going to take a week off between.
Okay.
So next week we'll take off, and then we'll start, and then there's going to be 3 weeks there where you're camping you're in Paris.
Yeah.
And that's going to be in October, right?
Yeah, October, yeah.
Which is perfect so that I can, on those days, begin working on the Unspooked stuff. Unspooked, for those who don't know, is a very special podcast series that I do around Halloween. I normally do 3 or 4 episodes, and it's me reading spooky stories that I found online with sound effects and whatnot, and it is super fun to do. It's a ton of work because I don't normally deal with sound effects on any of my shows. But it's so much fun, and I frequently freak myself out doing it because I have to be alone in the room, and often Owen is working at night, so I'm alone in the house. And then I start to just really not handle my shit. So yeah, if you're a patron and you haven't checked out Unspooked, we're getting into that season, and the playlists are up on the website. You should check them out. The first few episodes are very different than the later ones because I at first was doing live reads of some stories. I think I did Headless Horseman and Telltale Heart because they're fair use. What do you call it when they're out of copyright?
Public domain.
That's the one. Thank you. But then I decided that I wanted to do stories that people tell themselves from Reddit and from different websites and stuff, and it evolved into this whole thing. And the most recent series that I did last year is almost all covering this one really bizarre post from Reddit, and it was so interesting, and I'm pretty sure that it's all bullshit, but I don't care because it's so good. So yeah, y'all should check out Unspooked. It's up $1 and up patrons. So yeah,
Nice.
sir.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So
You okay?
no, I'm good.
What just happened?
Nothing. So y'all can find me on some other podcasts on the internet. The first one being the Smash Fiction podcast, which has been going for a little over 3 years now, and you can find that podcast on whatever podcatcher you use, as well as on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, smashfictionpodcast.com. Smash Fiction, if you're not aware by now, on the last episode of this show, is a show where we put fictional characters together, or against one another, I guess I should say, in some sort of contest and have hilarious debates about who would win in said contests. The most recent episode... What is the most recent episode? We recently came out with the Hot Fuzz versus Rush Hour match, which makes me very angry. So you should listen to that if you like hearing me be angry. More recently, we came out with the 32nd episode of Extraordinary League, which is our actual play RPG based on several fictional universes, in fact, not just one. So that's out now. We got Milo and Otis versus the Pets from Homeward Bound coming up this coming Sunday, so be sure to tune in for that. You can also become a patron of our show at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Patrons, depending on the level you donate, of course, get numerous perks. Among other things, the opportunity to vote on what matches we do. As we record this, there is currently a heated battle going on between two matches on the most recent patron poll. So if you want to be able to swing that stuff, go to patreon.com, become a patron of Smash Fiction. It's pretty great. You get lots of bonus content. It's fantastic. You can also go check out the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, which is the podcast that I produce and host, and it is based on a live monthly storytelling event here in my hometown of Tucson, Arizona. Just came out today with the full show that we did in August. The theme of that show was Red Flags. It's fucking tremendous. It's a great show. My wonderful and lovely wife, Sharon, was the curator of that show, so you get to hear her voice all over that particular episode. And there are some really, truly amazing stories on that episode. And then we're doing the September live show later this week, which actually I am curating. So on the next full episode, you'll be able to hear me all over the podcast, not just at the beginning and the end as you usually do. So yeah, check out the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, odysseystorytelling.com. And then check out Universes of the Mind, which is my blog about many, many different things. universesofthemind.com is the URL. Probably by the time you listen to this, the piece that I'm writing right now about why I have decided to continue watching the NFL this season will be up. So if you're at all curious about that, as I know some people out there are, feel free to read it. Feel free to argue with me about it. I totally respect anyone who chooses not to watch the NFL for a variety of reasons. I think it's frankly an admirable moral decision on your part, so don't let me talk you out of it. But what's going to be going up probably tomorrow or the next day, because I have to get it up before the season starts on Thursday, is the reason that I've decided to continue being, if not a fan, I mean definitely a fan, a viewer of professional football this year. So that and many other things going up currently at Universes of the Mind, and of course you can find links to all of this at www.mjschneiderman.com. And, as a final hurrah on this last of Dark Tower podcasts, I am a freelance writer and media producer. So if any of you out there enjoy my work and are interested at all in hiring me, or even just getting advice, like if you're a fan, I'll probably talk to you about whatever it is you want to know about. But if you want to toss some money my way, that'd be great. If you're interested in that, then hit me up on social media. I'm on Twitter at MJ Schneiderman. I'm on Facebook. I usually accept friend requests from people that are fans. And you can also email me at mjschneiderman.com. I'm sorry, mjschneiderman at gmail.com, I should say.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, whenever anybody's like, at anything but Gmail, I don't know what to say to them.
I mean, look.
Listen, I had a friend the other day who found out that she like could no longer log into her Yahoo anymore. Like they straight up just aren't letting her in.
That's
like,
fucked up.
Yeah, I was like, how? And don't even get me started on the grown-ass adults with Hotmail accounts because there's just really no excuse after a certain point. Like, do you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So, yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for not only like listening and leaving reviews, but like when we did the live read on Crowdcast for patrons, so many people came to that and it was really fun. I always get so wrapped up in what I do that I fail to step back and look at the craziness of what it really is. And the fact that at this point, people are like buying Spoil Me commissions because they want to know my opinion about stuff enough to pay for it is frankly not only baffling, but a little frightening. Guys, I don't know about my opinion. Is it worth that?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's
damn
true.
right.
But yeah, the fact that this is like this community, like the patrons group is just so active and there are so many people like contributing, and I really love the vibe of it, that everybody feels free to like disagree with each other on stuff and it never gets ugly in there. There's like no drama. The last time that there was any drama in the patrons group was probably like 3 years ago when I first started the group, and some dude who listened to the Song of Ice and Fire show, unsurprisingly, like went full on Not All Men, and we tried to talk him down and he basically left in a huff and un-Patreoned the show. And that was the last time, and it was so long ago. And since then, everything has been smooth sailing, and everybody gets along. And, you know, I really would like the show to continue to grow, and I would like to be able to make enough money to, like, pay people to co-host with me and all that. And in doing that and getting there, I will have to grow the group, and some drama may break out, and that might just be part of what comes along with it. But for right now, I'm just so delighted with, like, the quality of listener the show attracts. And everybody's just been so great, and I just thank you all so much for like being involved in this and encouraging us and talking us through it when it starts to get real bad, and letting us know whether or not you agree, and especially when you agree. That's our favorite. So yeah, guys, check out unspoiledpodcast.com, patreon.com/unspoiled. And just keep an eye on the Unspoiled show. There are lots of other things going on. I'm still covering Dresden Files, which has a while to go, and it's been so much fun. Rashawn recently said that it's like her favorite one to record at the moment.
Yeah.
Restarted Westworld for season 2, and that's been amazing so far. I'm doing Orphan Black, which I'll be wrapping with Maggie very soon. She and I are in the middle of covering Legion season 2 right now. And yeah, there's like, you know, patrons only shows like on Sober, and Natasha Bites Back, where it's a little 15-minute show where I talk about food with Krista, and it's hilarious. And there's just a lot out there, and I'm going to be looking into actually like becoming an LLC and taking this to the next level and getting an app made that's just for Unspoiled. And I hope that I can make that happen. If any of you have information on that, if you work for a place, get in touch with me, because I'm basically taking bids right now to see who can help me out with getting what I want made. And it's really kind of a jungle out there searching for somebody reputable who can do what you want. So I think that's all I've got to say on this, guys.
That's that.
That's a lot. But there are other unspoiled podcasts than these.
Oh, man. I'm trying to remember, like, the salutation, the Roland salutation just completely flew out of my head. What the fuck does he say again?
Long days and
Long
pleasant
days
nights.
and pleasant nights, y'all. It's been a great time.
It has been. We love you.
Yeah.
Big hearts. Big hugs. And we'll see you on a new show soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.